This is Women Who Build Empires, a podcast celebrating women entrepreneurs and thought leaders who are turning the tables on outdated old school belief systems and building business empires that align with who they are, how they work, and how they are leaving a lasting legacy. And I'm your host, Emmy Kirshner, serial entrepreneur, investor, and business consultant for ambitious women entrepreneurs who are boldly taking their business to the next level. In each episode, you're going to get to know the women who are unafraid to put it all on the line as they share the stories of how both success and failure have helped them become incredible CEOs. Hey, Empresses. I had the most incredible conversation in this episode with Dr. Kinga Mnich. She is an award-winning international social psychologist, educator, and speaker who specializes in emotions, positive psychology, and biohacking. Kinga believes that we need to change the systems to change prevailing inequalities when it comes to cultural diversity and gender. And I have to say, I'm truly enamored with how brilliant Kinga is. We talked about why we are measuring women and women's businesses with the wrong scale, and how we should be measuring GDP needs to change because it's not accurate. We also talked about how social algorithms, not only social media, but Google, Amazon, aren't helping women because they're not showcasing women the way they could be. And my favorite topic of conversation, why women need to stop apologizing. Let's dive in. Kinga, I am so excited to talk with you further. You and I met, I think it was a couple months ago, through LinkedIn. You invited me to be a contributor of your magazine, Ziva Voices. You've lived all over the world. You have done some of the most interesting work and combined things that I never would have combined. And I want to know so much more. So I'm just going to let you take it away and give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. And then I'll ask my long list of questions.
Sure. I am primarily a social psychologist. So I have my PhD in social psychology and worked at the Nelson Mandela University, where I was teaching for almost 5 years, living in South Africa, while doing several other things. So, taking the question, just to introduce myself, I call myself really a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I do start businesses and enterprises and projects almost on a yearly basis. Really, not all of them succeed, and not all of them is something that I want to move forward. But there are specific things about me that are just part and core of who I am, and social psychology certainly is one of them. I've been always very much interested in why and how society and systems work, how people function, why people, act in a specific way, what guides our thoughts and actions really. But at the same time, I've also have this drive, I guess you could call it drive, this infinite need of wanting to be part of something bigger, and it's not about legacy. I'm not a person where I'm I don't care about making an historic impact where someone doesn't where people will remember my name. It's not about that, but it's really about being here and creating something that has a greater meaning for others or helps others, be of support and help to others. At the same time, I love having fun and I'm super curious. So I think that's something that really drives me into new projects and new things.
Yeah. What is it like for you as an idea generator when you're creating these projects or starting businesses? What is it that drives you to have them keep going or to let them go?
It's honestly, it's really the joy. So for example, Ziva Voices.
Mhm.
Just to use a recent example. So I started Ziva Voices just last January. I came up with the idea in November 2021. And on January 15th, we had the first edition. And it was just so much fun, like it really felt like the pieces are coming together. It felt like everything that I've ever learned makes sense now because, I edited the magazine. I brought the people together. I curated the articles. I took 80% of the photography for it. I had the conversations, and it really felt like, wow, okay, it's starting to make sense. I think it's a combination and a mixture of, oh, this is starting to make sense and it is bringing me joy. And within a year, we have grown to a full board, plus 4 people that are working for Ziva Voices and are helping to drive it. And it's really, I don't know, I cannot even describe it. It's fun. Like even this last issue that we just recently published, it's just incredible. It's just like really, really incredible to see who contributed, who, is supporting it, how people are reacting to it. I guess that's one of the big ways how I test it. How are people reacting to it?
Mm-hmm.
How are people taking it in? How are people wanting to support it? Are they willing to support it? Like what is the time that they are willing to invest into this project? So Ziva Voices is a nonprofit also, so it makes it a bit different compared to any for-profit project. But yeah, I think it's that. Does it bring me joy? Does it make me feel like it's worth my time because I am learning by doing it? And what I mean by learning by doing it, not like learning the process of it, but am I learning from the people around it? Am I learning, from the goals, kind of like, or from the process of achieving the goals? And then how are people really reacting to it? And that has been really incredible in this particular instance because I haven't seen it like that ever before. And I started my first business when I was 20 and I had several businesses and 3 nonprofit organizations before worldwide. And this has been the most interactive. It has been so easy to find support for it.
Yeah. And what's the meaning of the name? First
So,
of all? Yeah.
yeah. So Ziva, there are several meanings to it. So the first meaning to it means true knowledge. It comes from Shona, which is one of the main languages in Zimbabwe. But it also means brilliant light in Hebrew, and in Polish or in the Slavic culture, Ziva, which you just pronounce it a bit differently, was the first female goddess of life and fertility.
Oh, cool.
And so with Ziva Voices, it's all about, her story in the making. So we want to change history for women, change the way women are being perceived, and change the storyline of women. So really when we, like when I found out all the different kinds of meaning for Ziva, I'm like, this just makes sense. This is it. Like,
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's such a great name because you're doing all of that in the magazine. And one of the things I've been looking for recently is business books written by women. Because I've been, particularly in the last 6 months, but just I think in general, really focused on how women create businesses differently than men. Because our bodies just operate differently, our brains operate differently, and not good or bad. Like it's not about that. It's really about owning who we are and optimizing for the way our brains and our bodies work. And there's really not a lot out there. I mean, there's a lot of mindset stuff, but from a marketing sales perspective, how women can do that differently or team building, like there's just not the volumes of sources out there. So I think having that perspective and that ability to educate from that voice is really important.
Yeah. And you know what? And I wonder partially also if it's not out there or if we are just not finding it, So last year my goal was not to buy a book written by a man. You know?
Perfect.
And so I was just reading books written by women and just ordered books written by women and just dived really into it. And I mean, it's incredible what I found, and I just started posting actually every Monday on LinkedIn, just like a short summary with a link to one of the books.
Mm-hmm.
But there was, what is it? I think it's Candid Candor or something along those lines. I'll send it to you later on. Incredible business book. Incredible business book. Never heard of it before. My husband was just reading it, and he's like, hey, I need to use that with my team. And there are a lot of books out there. They're just not receiving the same publicity than books written by men.
Well, and then maybe that's my challenge because Amazon's not helping me either. So
No. And it's so interesting, because like we've been diving into tons of research, for Ziva Voices because we are pitching right now as well, as we are trying to build an app out of it.
mm-hmm.
And my husband came to me and he's helping out with a lot of things. And so he put in, we were trying to do a competitor analysis, and he typed in women's magazines into Google, and he comes up and he's like, look, the first pictures that are shown here are not magazines for women, that are magazines about women. There was like Playboy in it and all of that, and he's like, how are these magazines for women, So it's interesting, because I think that the algorithms are not supporting our searches. The Amazon, their algorithm isn't necessarily focusing on what we want. Even if you go into mindset, the first books that come up on mindset are all written by men on Google. Yeah. So, I mean, that is right. That is the reason why I started Ziva Voices. And I think that's the reason why so many are joining the movement, really, because we don't have enough access even to all the knowledge that is out there that has been created by women.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, and if you look at, history, our voices have been essentially wiped out because there's not, yes, there's certain women that have popped up over time, but that women have contributed even in the background to most men who have led anything.
Yeah.
And that we've played a part that just hasn't been showcased or thought about or valued.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really what I love about what you're doing. I get goosebumps. For me, women have so much to offer, and our leadership is different, and we create more sustainable businesses, not only from the business aspect, and I'm air quoting that, from a money or sales perspective, but from team building, from longevity, from really having an organization that's whole and holistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to hear your take on that as well.
Look, when you look into research and data, right? I am a data-driven person. I guess that's the reason why, I've been in academia for so long, and why I go back on a regular basis. But because it really shows us how the world is in numbers without attaching any emotions to it. And so when you look at the numbers, women's businesses are usually more sustainable. Women's businesses also fail less than men's businesses. I do have actually the data somewhere. I need to send it to you. So it takes female-led businesses usually longer to be profitable. And that is something that I've even, I was once at an event, and it was from angel investors. And it was really interesting because it was angel investors. It was just a female group, and they were talking about how to get an investor into your business and so on, and what to do. And one of them said that most of the time they still invest into businesses owned by men because they are faster profitable than the one created by women. And I was first a little bit shocked, but then, I thought, like, this is just so wrong also from an investor's perspective, because what are we going for? Are we going for the fast money, or are we going for the sustainable money that is going to be with us for quite some time? Right. And is it about just making the fast money and then, seeing just the business go down, because that's what's happening with a lot of businesses that have been created, by men. And we see that right now also so perfectly actually in media, how all these great men are driving profitable businesses so fast down just because they were thinking that they can scan it, or scale it into infinity, or I don't know exactly what they've been thinking. But when we look at wealth and creating a business, we don't look at how the business impacts the greater community. We just look at it from a perspective of either, is it worthy of being invested in? And then how do I get my investment out of it fast enough? And what is, what is the win that I'm going to be making with it? Or, like, is this a product, that we can sell fast enough? But it's never on like, how is this product going to be benefiting long-term other people? And I think that that's what women do, right? When women usually open up businesses that are a solution to a problem that they came across, or a solution to a problem that they see other women struggle with. Right. And for now, right now, the needs that women have are still pretty basic, because there's not enough childcare. Healthcare isn't good enough because, women have been basically not really in the research on women in medicine is just not that widespread. There's tons of data missing when it comes to the female body, to female health, to, everything around us. So what women are doing right now, what I see is quite often still create businesses that are covering these, quote unquote, let's call it basic needs, right? Now, which is great on the one side, but it's also a shame because we don't have enough businesses that we can compare with the big boys. Right. Because if you're busy trying to figure out how you can create, a new school model, for example, in your community, so 50 other women can go to work, or you're trying to figure out how create a different system on caretaking because you've been a caretaker, it's like you are not going to be sitting at home and thinking on, is there an AI that I can develop, or is there any kind of technology that I can develop that will help that problem? Because you are trying to solve the problem that you are facing right now. Right. So we are really measuring women's businesses on the wrong scale. And also, like, even like when you look at the GDP, like how it excludes everything that women are doing. There should be, there are so many economists that have written several papers, I think especially in the last 2 or 3 years even, that say we need to have a different kind of measurement for our economy. Like GDP is just not doing the trick.
No, because there's so many aspects that matter that, as you said, aren't included. And I think it's like looking at, from a business perspective, looking at accounting and only measuring the finances, but not measuring the people and the performance and the happiness, and which we're finally starting to do. But it's the same thing with the economy, like measuring some of the softer areas makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's like, I'm reading another book right now. It's the XX Economy. Really highly recommended. She is her background is in economy, and I think also as a social psychologist, but she's a researcher. My guess is now she has been doing it for over 30 or 40 years, maybe not that long, but she has been doing research all over the world, really, mostly on women's issues and economy, and what are the obstacles that women are facing. And what she really points out is how important the work is that women are doing, how important it is also to create an environment that makes it easy for women to want to have children, by the way, because we do need to have children in order to, support the next generation, but also keep our cities and societies alive. And in so many countries around the world, we are just not having enough children anymore. And there are different, ways of trying to incentivize women to have children, right? Germany is doing it with really long and full maternity leave. Other countries are coming up with very creative laws that I feel like are almost forcing women to have children, but they're not tackling all these measurements are not tackling the core issue. And the core issue is what really matters in our society is that we need to have a consistent production of the next generation, right? That is, without that, nothing that we are trying to do or nothing that we are doing is going to ever actually work, because if we don't have people, we won't be able to sustain our societies. And of course, yes, we have still, major issues in certain regions of the world where there are just too many children being born and there's not enough education and so on. She talks about that as well and what kind of impact it has. But it's really interesting because no matter which kind of circumstances you're looking at the world, if you improve women's lives, you improve the GDP.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter where or who is doing a shift, the smallest shift is just already impacting, our societies in such a positive way. So I don't understand why we are not starting to actually just place more importance on what matters the most. And it's certainly not, it doesn't matter that some kind of investor, is getting $1 billion return every year. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But what matters is that if a woman is starting a business that is changing the lives of 100 women around her, because it's, because it's helping them to give back to the community, to make them happier, to make them healthier, to whatever it is that we are needing. So it's like we need to shift also what we are celebrating, when we've in the last couple of months, and now the news changed a little bit, but when Elon Musk started, with this whole Twitter thing and going in, and he was celebrated for it such a big way. And I'm like, for what? For why?
He's acting like a teenager, and maybe I'm wrong, but for me, if a woman had his resources, she would be solving different problems.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what was it? I think he paid $46 billion. It wasn't just his money. He got also money from investors. Right. Imagine you give $46 billion to a group of women that is trying to shift the, how do you call that in English? Sorry, early maternity death in United States, where you have still, maternity.
Or the stillbirths or miscarriages.
No. Sorry. When women are, there are still too many women dying during childbirth in the US. How do you call it? There's a specific term for it. Doesn't matter. Anyway,
we'll make it up.
It's fine. We will find a different example. But the things that you could do with that money, in order to create actually something that is cleaning the water, right? We don't have enough water around the world. We need more cleaner water. Bringing water to California. There are so many examples or ideas that I could come up with, within 5 minutes. If someone would give me that
Education,
money.
Hunger, poverty, climate change, you could make significant impacts in any and all of those because they're all intertwined. Yeah, that's it. It's very frustrating. And nothing against Elon Musk. I have stock in Tesla. I was really you just got knocked down a few points in my general example.
Yeah. But it's, I think what I want to aim at, or just, make us look at, is really how we are celebrating men and what we are celebrating them for. But then we are using this really harsh judgment, for women, and how we are looking at women and how we are measuring their achievements and what we are expecting of women. And we are still, and that is the crazy thing, we are still expecting of women to be the perfect mother, to be the perfect wife. Now we're expecting of them to have the perfect career, to also contribute to the household income. On top of that, be somehow creative, so they are good role models for the children. There's just so much, and we are still not having the same expectations towards men.
No, we're not. And women do more all of the time. And to some extent, I think, we're better at that multifocal thing, if you will, than guys, but it's really finding a different way to create partnerships and relationships, and then acknowledging that women are just doing more different things on any given day, and we don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And I don't even know if we're really better at it, or we are just good at it because we have to. There's no other choice.
Yeah. I don't know. I've read very top level, just from the from hunter-gatherer communities, the women were picking berries and watching kids. generally
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
like something else, and the guys just went out and hunted.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it's in our evolution.
Yeah, I see.
And I had actually had this conversation with my son this past weekend because he's very singular focused with work right now. He loves his job. He's doing really cool things, and that's what he does. And he's single and he's happy, and that's great. And I'm like, I couldn't do that with you. Like, you would have starved to death.
Yeah.
Like, kids want to be fed, and that's the way it is. So I had to figure out how to do work or my business and raise you at the same time.
Mm.
And it really didn't hit him until I was like, you would have had nothing in the refrigerator. He's a nonstop eater. So I don't think guys even understand either. Like, and I mean, he's young, but I don't
Mm.
think I don't think they've stopped and really thought about we're doing more on any given day, and not more in the volume, just more in the number of things we're juggling.
Mm. And it's
Yeah.
not just the things that we're juggling, I believe it's also the obstacles in form of opinions and societal standards and structures and roles that we have to still argue against, and waste our time with it instead of having just kind of like the open runaway, just to like go and move things forward.
What do you think women can do to have their voice heard more and be found on Google and Amazon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
I really think there are two things that just like pops into my mind right away. Ask more people to share, and be really blunt about that. But also share, if you're a woman, share the work from other women. I think that that's still not happening enough, sometimes because we are afraid to be judged for what we are sharing, but sometimes also I think it's fear of, if I share this and there's not enough space for my stuff. And the other thing, so really, really going out and go in and say, hey, like, I mean, like, I wrote a book. Can you put it into your next newsletter? Do you know anyone that can have me on their podcast? Do you like really? I think that women are not direct enough.
I would
It will
agree.
be like, oh, can you help me? Sure, I can help you, but how do you want to be helped?
Right.
Right. And so kind of like knowing what is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you want to do? And then really ask very specifically, can you help me with X, Y, Z?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is stop apologizing.
Oh my God. That is my pet peeve.
Yeah, I mean, I think really women need to stop apologizing. I got a sweetest text this morning from a friend that is helping with Ziva voices, and I sent her a cryptic message yesterday night because I finished something, and she texted me back and she said, hey, maybe I missed something, but I'm not understanding it correctly. And so sweet. And I texted her back. I'm like, you're so sweet and so polite. I'm the one, that didn't communicate correctly. You didn't miss anything, right? But I mean, it was kind of like the perfect example, because what happens is something doesn't go the way we expect it to go, and the first thing that we assume is that it's our fault, so we start apologizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just like, certain things might be also just unclear. We don't have to apologize for it, right? Or maybe you're just not understanding. Then you're just not understanding. Better to ask to understand it. But yeah, so I would say those two things, like really be direct, I think we need to be more direct. Men are pretty direct. And it's not that I don't even think being direct is less feminine or more masculine or whatever. It just means that you're clear and focused on what you want to achieve, or what kind of change you want to create.
Yeah. Yeah. I have found, because I have a couple of clients who are very direct, and I love it. And they've given me feedback that they get feedback that they're intimidating or scary. I think people don't know what to do when women are direct. So we have to me, that's like, okay, we need to be even more direct and more clear. So one, it becomes normal, and we can kind of teach people how to interact with us. and not be intimidated, because I would much rather have that than somebody beat around the bush and be not really tell me what they want. I can't help them then.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also, I think, let me just like, it was, I think it was Radical Candor. It was Radical Candor, the other book, because what you just brought up, I think it's a really important thing. So she wrote in her book that quite often it is also difficult for male or leaders, managers, to give feedback to women because they're afraid of how women will react to the feedback. On the one side, because of course, certainly some men are also afraid to, not do it the right way, or I mean, we live in a world, unfortunately, in where it's really difficult to be direct, because if you make a mistake, you can be, if it's publicly, you can be canceled out, right? If it's just, in a smaller circle, you can face other consequences for it. But we have to understand that by being direct, we are also giving space to make mistakes. And I think that's something that's really, like, even thinking right now about that, that's maybe the third thing. Like, women are afraid of making mistakes, and maybe that's the reason why it's so difficult for them to be direct. And others expecting women to be direct is not common. Yeah, why is it not common? I mean, it's culturally, right? But also, I don't know, because we are not expecting women to be good at conflict. Maybe, honestly, I think that's one of the other.
And we are.
Yeah, we are.
Like, that's the funny thing, is that we are. We're great at conflict.
Yeah,
I think we're better at resolving it, and being empathetic to whoever we're engaged in conversation with, just in general.
Yeah. So I guess, becoming also better at conflict. Why not just have difficult conversations with people and do it on purpose? I don't know. Go out and have, with friends that that they have an opposite opinion. Just discuss with them exactly that.
Yeah.
I
want to shift gears completely, because you did a TEDx a little while ago, and I watched it. It was super cool, on feelings and emotions. Share with everybody a little bit about what it is. We're going to have the link for the video in the show notes, along with the link to have a free subscription to Ziva Voices. But as I said, share with everybody a little bit about what you talked about. And
so, I'm trying to figure out where to start, just to give everyone a little bit of context. So I was mainly talking about the difference between emotions and feelings from a social psychological perspective. So usually when we speak about emotions or feelings, we speak about the same, or often even scientists will sum it up as the same to keep it simple. There's a general agreement in academia that there's a difference between emotions and feelings, but you have to do some homework in order to find the common ground on what the definition is for emotions and what the definition is for feelings. And I did my PhD research on masculinity and emotions in high security prison facilities in South Africa. And the intent of the research was first a little bit different, and I shifted, and then I started developing it further afterwards anyway. But as a social psychologist, right, there's a different, like, quite often people will still say, oh, she is a psychologist. No, I'm not. Because what I'm interested in is really, the person and how the person is interacting within the environment. So meaning in relation to others. And as much as I look into how a person individually is acting, I think it's super important to understand how the environment is impacting us. And we say that, like, usually quite easily, yes, like, choose the right people around you, make sure that you have people around you that are aligned with your goals. So they really help you to, grow and move forward. Now, when it comes to emotions and feelings, I started realizing very early in my research that there is a significant difference between how a person feels inside and how they act or how they show their emotions in accordance to what is expected of them. And that's what we're doing, right? We are playing on a daily basis different roles, right? You're the business consultant and strategist, but you're also a mother. You're also, I think, a sister. You're a daughter. You're a friend. You might be a yoga student. Like there are so many different aspects that or different roles that we step into, and these different roles have different requirements to be understood. Like, what is a good mother, for example? A good mother acts in a specific way, and in that specific way, there will be also a very specific way how you show your emotions. Really good example is, I think, specifically like here in our Western cultures, if you go to a funeral and the person that is left behind doesn't cry or doesn't show any sadness, like we are going to think this person is, doesn't feel loss, or he or she didn't love the other person that just passed away. Like we're going to be putting culturally so many interpretations into that, just because that person isn't showing specific emotions that we are expecting in that situation to be shown. But that person might be just from a different culture, and in a culture in which they don't show their emotions in public, in the public eye. So it's not really, there are just so many different aspects to how and what we actually feel. And so what I found out really is that once you understand that there is a difference between how you feel and how you're supposed to feel, you understand that you're actually making a choice. And you're making a choice as how you actually want to feel in that moment. But what it really does, it really reproduces a sense of freedom in order to understand who am I, or who do I want to be, and then act accordingly to that. Which interestingly enough, like I've seen this now because I've tested it, also on people in different surroundings. Once you understand that it's your choice, it's also easier for you to go into conflict and live with consequences, because you know that you have actually chosen to create that specific friction because you are not agreeing what's being expected of you socially and culturally. And I think, especially for women, that topic just sounds, and my TEDx talk is I broke it down in very, very simple terms. But
short. I mean, time, I think you could talk several hours on just this topic.
Yeah, but because it's just so intricate. But like, let me just put one perspective into it. I think for women, the biggest obstacle that we are facing is that we are trying to live up to someone else's standards and stories and structures. And we then blame ourselves and make ourselves feel small, and we make ourselves feel like we are not good enough because we are living up to something that never has been part of how we imagine to live our life. Right. And so really that TED Talk, even though I'm talking about the difference between emotions and feelings, but it is at the end about understanding the difference between who you want to be and what you choose, or who you choose to be, in accordance or not in accordance with the society around you.
Right.
Yeah.
So we should create our own standards.
Yeah, we need to create our own standards. We need to create our own ideas, and we need to create also not just our own standards, but also systems. If you are not happy with a specific system, change and create a microsystem for yourself. Sometimes that means you have to move the country to make it easier for yourself.
It does.
But but sometimes it just means also just finding people that share your opinion. And I think that that's what's also happening. I think that more and more women are stepping into entrepreneurship and creating their own companies. And if these women could now even collaborate more, then they could create internal systems for childcare, even. Like if you are in a group of women that are entrepreneurs, you most likely know someone that might have a bigger building, that might have the space. And where you could just, live it, like develop almost like a village experience, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's so much opportunity for us to create newly and really have some positive change on our culture and society. That I want to encourage everybody who's listening to kind of think about how can they create their own standards and their own system, and also ask for help and be direct.
Yeah. Yeah. But speak up, right? At the end of the day, it is speak up for what it is that you imagine and what it is that you want. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it right away, but at least you put it out there. And who knows, just by putting it out there, you might actually find someone else that shares your view and shares your idea, and will come up and will make it just easier to create it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, what did we, so we had a couple of things, right? Say no, speak up.
Yeah. Stop apologizing, my favorite.
Stop apologizing. Yeah, I would add actually say no to this, to the stop apologizing.
Yeah.
And then create your own systems.
Yeah.
And it's a really closed loop, because once you start with one of these, you have to actually go and move forward with the other ones. But I mean, with the women that you work with, the entrepreneurs that you also deal with on a daily basis, why do you believe that more women are actually moving into entrepreneurship?
For the reason that you said earlier, is that and I see this on the podcast, for anybody who's listening, if you've listened to a couple of episodes, you'll somewhere in there, many of the women have started businesses because either they experienced a problem or somebody else that they know had a problem, and that's how they've solved it. And now they want to be able to bring that to the world and then do it differently. And maybe not like complete disruption of the industry, but they have such a unique take on how to do it better. And I'm going to say in a more friendly, empathetic, kinder, gentler way that people really resonate with.
So how can we give these women more voice, right? I mean, that's really at the end of the day, like, how can we hear more about these stories?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, as I said before we hit the record button, why you have Ziva Voices, why I changed the name of the podcast, and really want to talk about the stories, because the stories are so important. And the feedback I get from the podcast is somebody's story resonated with me. I've gone through that. I'm going through that. I have felt like this before, etc. And it's never that, the sales 101 content, which is great and needed at times too, was the best thing that they ever heard. It's the stories that connect all of us.
Yeah. I mean, we are all on a path of really just finding out, I guess, how we want to live this life. And the more women also speak up and show how they are doing it differently, the more women will find courage to do so as well, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have to wrap up. I could talk to you forever. We'd have all of the world's problems solved in the next couple of hours. Thank you so much. Like, I'm so honored to know you, but to have you on the show. And before we end, could you let everybody know where they can connect with you?
Sure. The best way currently to really connect with me is on LinkedIn. I just respond quite quickly on LinkedIn, but you can find me also on Instagram and my website. But LinkedIn is, I don't know, it just works pretty well.
Awesome. It's my hope that you find at least one nugget of value in each episode of Women Who Build Empires. And if that's true, please follow and share Women Who Build Empires with your friends and leave a review on Apple Podcast. Your support is what will help this podcast be found by more women just like you.